Yeah, hello and welcome to my today's video recording accessories for external video recorders, like this ATOMOS Ninja Blade here, for example. By the way, this video will be more oriented or leaning towards the ATOMOS recorders because I also know about a few limitations or workarounds you need for the Ninja Blade to work properly with it. But yeah, you can also watch this video in general because I will talk about accessories which are also applicable for other recorder models, for example, the Odyssey series, the PIX-E, some points, and also for recording the Blackmagic video assist models, for example. And yeah, so keep watching if you want to. But a small warning or short warning at this point already, my videos are always quite detailed, so they are always quite long. So if you don't have the time now to watch it in one take, I highly recommend save the link, save the video into your to watch later list if you're watching directly on YouTube, because it makes more sense to watch it in one take to get all the information packed and not in parts. But before I start to babble, as always too long, let's start with the first point, and I'm moving this a little bit here so I have a little bit more space. And the first point is really important, and it's about the SATA reader. This is, by the way, the revision 2 reader from ATOMOS, which is included originally with the Ninja Blade. So it's not the older model, but the point is, and I don't know if it's still the case also with the Flame and the Inferno, and also with the Shogun and the original Shogun and the Assassin. But with this version 2 reader, and if you have such a reader, yeah, I highly recommend go for a second SATA adapter, because I had severe problems with this reader. It's sometimes reconnecting while copying, which is normally working because the operating systems are restarting the copy process for the cancelled file. But if you're copying, for example, 200 gigabytes or so, just as an example, it's really annoying if it's restarting every third file or so, the controller. And the problem is, and this is quite well known, that ATOMOS used and is using very weird USB chipsets. Don't ask me why. So I highly recommend go for a replacement adapter, and I will talk about this adapter in a few seconds, because it's making not a very good image if you're, for example, at a client or so, and you have to say, sorry, I have to send you an SD card, or I have to put it on an FTP, or which is weird with a few hundred gigabytes or maybe up to 1 terabyte or so of files. Because my adapter, I have to do this because my adapter isn't working. It's like if you say to someone, sorry, I cannot give you any picture because I don't have an SD reader with me, which is also quite weird to say. So if you want a stable connection, and I really don't recommend this one, I even recommend to throw this out of your bag and to go for 2 of those, because yeah, it's just not working properly. By the way, it's not with hard drives, even with normal standard SSDs, and this is my main Evo 850 Samsung, and this is a 128 gigabyte Evo 850. Even with standard SSDs, it was a problem to copy files, and those are normally not using the max power especially compared to normal hard drives like this replacement Hitachi 200 RPM hard drive, 500 gigabytes, which was my replacement for if one of those SSDs died. So highly recommended, go for a second reader. If you have, for example, the Blackmagic Video Assist with SD cards, go for at least 1 external reader, or even also 2 external readers, so you have, or so you can be sure that you can copy, on site. It's also making sense, by the way, if you have, for example, the dual SD card Blackmagic Video Assist, because you can also copy the files simultaneously on different computers if you have 2 readers. But here, another hint, according to the ATOMOS reader, the problem is, or the point is, that you need a little bit of a deeper connection to the SSD or to the hard drive, because, and I can show you that, because the main connection is not the whole part here from the case. It's from here to here, and so and as this you can see with connecting a normal SSD, there is still a little bit of space in between the SSD or the hard drive and the reader, and this space you need to connect a normal ATOMOS blade enclosure. And there is still a little bit of space in between, if I can center it right. And so there, it's also deep enough in there and fully connected, as you can see here. And it's working like a charm. And don't buy just any adapter, because then you have to remove the SSD from the caddy, which I don't recommend to do, because it's also a protection and you're maybe also damaging the threads over time. Go for this solution. And this adapter is from a PIX. It's called a PIX with a C at the end, model number 302058. Yeah, and another number. You can also search it on Amazon, but I will also try to keep links active and up to date in the video description. I will put this on, which I bought from CSL Computer at Amazon Germany. But I will also try to keep links active for Amazon.com, for example, so you don't have to search for it. By the way, this adapter is available from different brands and from different dealers. Yeah, just check out the pictures and check it according to the deeper connection, because the deeper connection is really the unique point you need to know and you need to check. And you can see it here. There is a little bit of space. This is one hint according the ATOMOS reader, and which replacement reader I highly recommend. According media, as mentioned, I'm using primarily the SSDs, the hard drives. I'm normally only using, or this one hard drive only use as replacement. If you go for an external recorder, go also for SSDs, because they are just more shockproof and they are also faster to copy. I used the EVO 850 in here with the Ninja Blade. I used the Samsung 830, the 500GB model, for quite a while, and I also used the Kingston KC400 for also in the second caddy, because it has a very high write capacity. So check it out, and the Kingston KC400 also worked like a charm. By the way, yeah, if you have a 4K model, don't oversee that you only are able to use SSDs, not hard drives, because hard drives are too slow for 4K. And also an important hint, if you are starting to shoot, if you're using Windows computers only, I highly recommend to use a DNx HD, because with ProRes, there is still the luminance bug, or how it's called. And so, at least in some NLEs, and especially if you're using CS6 or so, again, highly recommended, use DNx HD. And I used it, yeah, 9 out of 10 times for DNx HD. By the way, I shot about 10 plus minus projects with the Ninja Blade. But I used it primarily in studio for green screen work. So if you have a GH4, for example, highly recommended, because it's also shooting then perfectly 1080p footage if you're shooting camera internally with 4K. And yeah, aliasing free, Moray free. Highly, highly recommended. But before I'm talking is always too long, what I also recommend is not only, what I forgot to mention, not only go for one caddy, I highly recommend to go for 2 caddies, because if you have a problem with one caddy, for example, one SSD died, it's normally better to have 2 drives with half the capacity compared to one big drive. Because, for example, if you have a 500 gigabyte and you don't have a second drive, and this one dies while shooting, you cannot continue. If you have a second drive, SSD or hard drive, you can at least copy the files in between and then shoot again with a second caddy. So highly recommended, go for a second drive, even if it's smaller, even if it's a cheaper SSD you normally don't use. Highly, highly recommended. Yeah, but that's a standard hint, because also with a normal camera, you need a second SD card from time to time. Okay, let's get to cables. And here I have one of my favorite cables. This is a 50 centimeter, and often I also get questions according the perfect length. This is a 50 centimeter deleyCON cable. Also, there will be also a link in the description. deleyCON cables are normally only available in Europe, as far as I remember. So I will try to keep an ultra flexible cable link for Amazon.com also active or up to date. But I don't recommend to use those standard, and here I have one, those standard cables which you sometimes get with some monitors, or which are for free included with some recorders, because those are really, really hard. And so you're putting strain on the ports of your recorder. And here are the ports in and out of the Ninja Blade. And the problem is not only this connection here, that it's adding more strain on these ports. It's primarily the connection on the camera, because, and I'm using the GH2 for that, because if you check out those micro HDMI, it should be clear that it's not as, it's as strong as this full size HDMI. And this is one of the points why I love the new GH5, or also, for example, the bigger camcorders, because they, or for example, the Micro Cinema Studio, the new one from Blackmagic, because those have a full-size HDMI. And if you're using an external recorder, I highly recommend go at least for a super flexible cable. And it's sometimes also better compared to a cage, for example, because with a cage you're adding more weight, and if you're only getting the cage just to get a cable protection, most of the cable protections, by the way, I know they are also not perfect. And so it's more useful to go for a very flexible port. And as you can see here, and I'm using the GH2 again, you can really bend it in all ways, and you can even fold it a little bit, for transportation, for example, which is, maybe possible, but not really recommended with the standard cables. On the other hand, according adapters for the Ninja Blade, but also for other recorders, I highly recommend to use such an 90-degree adapter, because that way, and I'm moving this also to the GH2, because the point is, as soon as you connect it here, the cable isn't exiting this way, so this way here and straight, and so the cable isn't interfering with your hand. For example, if you are focusing, for example, with a follow focus or with your bare hand, because if you compare, for example, this it needs a little bit of space, and I can interconnect it here. Okay, it's not possible. If you check it here, for example, there's always a little bit of cable where you can hang, or which is interfering with your hands. And it's also not recommended to always use it at extreme angles, because it's damaging the cable maybe over time. So what I always used basically with this, though it's blocking the HDMI out, I'm using this 90-degree adapter, because then the cable is going straight downwards. And because the camera is anyways on this side here, for example, if you mount it sideways of the camera on the left side, you always need the cable anyways in this direction. So highly recommended, go for one of those 90-degree adapters. And I will also try to keep the link active. This is also from deleyCON, but you can also go for any adapter. Just check that the direction is the right one for your external recorder, because here it's the right one, because the port is pointing, the edges are on this side, for example. So check out your port which you need. But it's really helping also to protect not only the cable, not only the recorder, it's also protecting the equipment from yourself, because if you're handling always at the lens, it's also a risk that you're damaging something or that you're breaking off something by yourself. Okay, let's get to the mounting. What I don't recommend is this mounting option directly on a camera, because, and I can, and I remounted the battery, but I can show it to you here again on the GH2. The point is that if you mount this directly with this recorder, for example, directly on a camera, you're putting a lot of strain on there, because, and you can, if you have a monitor or a recorder at home, try holding it just a few seconds on this port. And this is a 5-inch, it's not a 7-inch, which is even adding more strain. But if you don't want to damage your flash shoe, and I know someone who nearly damaged the flash, so it was already moving off the enclosure, or it was half breaking or broken already. Yeah, if you want to keep your camera longer than just half a year or a year or so, then I highly recommend to go for an external mounting option. And external mounting options are quite widespread. I mean, you can go for a bare 15mm mount, though this is not really flexible. What I recommend for smaller recorders, especially the 5-inch models, or the Ninja Star, which is the smallest one, such a small magic arm, which is a shorter one compared to, for example, this super long standard one you can find more often maybe. By the way, this clamp is from Tilta, but this one you normally get for, without the clamp, you get it for $10 or so. But what I recommend is, for example, this smaller ones with a rod clamp for 5-inch, and this one, for example, the bigger ones for the longer one with the longer arms for the 7-inch models. What I absolutely don't recommend is using those connections, and I'm removing one of the clamps, to use those, and you normally often get it in this shape here, for example, without the flash adapter, because I also mounted it by myself. But don't use this connection directly on a video head, for example, because and I'm using the main camera again for that, because let's say you're mounting it on your head, and I'll try it. And for example, you're positioning your monitor a little bit more to the front. Yeah, okay, here. You're moving it, or you're positioning the arm a little bit more to the front, and I can position it, for example, for you. And the problem is, as soon as the external recorder is on this position, it's putting strain on here, and so it's untwisting it it's untwisting because of the gravity. And so also don't mount, and this is really important, don't mount it this way on the rig, mount it this way, so upwards, like you can see it here. So it should be that this part, and I'm using the GH2, that this part is always sideways of your rail and not beneath it, because as soon as how should I call it? As soon as it's there is an option that the arm is twisting off, there's a high risk that you're damaging not only your recorder, it's maybe also tipping over your whole tripod. Because if you have a 7-inch model with 2 batteries mounted, they have a lot of weight. So keep this in mind. Highly recommended if you don't have a rig base, you can also go for the anti-twist or anti-rotation EasyLink system if you have a Manfrotto tripod or Manfrotto video head, fluid head, but keep an eye on the anti-rotation naming, because otherwise there's also the risk that it's twisting off by itself because of the gravity. And this is one solution. If you don't have a rig base, you can also go for a super cheap one. On eBay, you can find such cheap rig bases for a few bucks from time to time. Yeah, well, powering the Ninja Blade and also other external recorders, it's quite tricky. I mean, you can see here I have, for example, one of those external adapters, which I'm talking about in a few seconds. But normally, with most external recorders, you have 2 batteries at the back. With the Shogun, with the original Shogun and the Ninja Assassin, you only have 1, but there's still a DC plug to power it externally with the battery as a backup, so it's still working. Here you don't have any DC plug connection, so you need to use such an adapter for external power. But let's get back to the battery solutions. The Ninja Blade is working quite well with the smaller batteries because it's only it's only consuming 7 to 8 watts. So it's also running with the smaller batteries quite long. But as soon as you go, for example, for a 4K compatible model like the Shogun, Assassin, original ones, or the Flame models or the Inferno models, the newest one with 4K 60 support, they suck a lot of power out of the batteries, and so you need bigger batteries. I mean, normally you can also use 2 big ones on here, but the problem is, and this I want to show you first, the problem is those big batteries are adding a lot of weight to the recorder. And so not only the magic arm, for example, has to carry it, also the batteries also need to carry the high load. And the problem with the ATOMOS recorders is a little bit, at least a little bit, that they are switching way too early from one battery to the second one. And you can see it, for example, here. And I'm using the GH2 for that. You can see it here. This is battery slot 1. And yeah, they also state here, for example, the input voltage 6.2 up to 16.8 volts DC. And the point is that the ATOMOS recorders, they are switching, for example, to the second battery at 6.8 or I think 6.8 volts or 6.9, somewhere just a little bit beneath 7 volts. And so the batteries are still quite full, and although they are quite full, they are switching to the second one. One hint, according to the Ninja Blade, here it's a little bit additional of a limitation because it has varying power loads. It's varying with most batteries about 0.2 volts. And so it's not switching at, let's say, 6.8 volts, it's switching over 7 volts because the load is varying a little bit. And this is always the case, so don't think that it's only the case if you're using a hard drive because it's using or consuming more power. So I thought about that and I made an external battery solution. And this has a red dot. By the way, this is the DK-415, yeah, 415. DK-415 adapter, which you can get for a few bucks over eBay, for example. I also always will try to keep a link active. With this adapter, you can mount an external battery, for example, because it's a direct cable connection, and it has a red dot here because it's 12 volts. And the point is, and I'm showing this to you now. The point is, I'm using, for example, here an external battery plate system. And here you can mount, for example, an NPF battery. So I also have here, for example, a voltage reader. You don't need to normally don't need that. But yeah, the most important part is that I have here a DC step-up converter. And this is a full 05111-204L. And I will try to also show it to you in the GH2, and this is, yeah, okay, 05111-204L, and one of the cable protections got loose, but whatever. The point is that because of this step-up conversion, I can use this with 12 volts, and with 12 volts I can power the Ninja Blade, for example, and it's as far as I think the other ones you can power over the DC plug with 12 volts or more. And the huge pro is that it's not switching from this battery to the second one at 6.8 volts because it's always getting the 12 volts. Because the SmallRIG adapter beneath here of a step-up converter is working from 5 to 11 volts. It's working till this battery dies. And normally most batteries are going into safety somewhere in between 5.8 to 6.1, 6.2 volts normally. Normally they are somewhere around 5.8 to 6 volts. And so this is really running, this setup is running until the battery dies. And so you can also use, for example, batteries which are partly empty. I mean, for example, if you have such 970 batteries with your LED lights, and the LED lights are consuming 40 watts, and because of the high load, the voltage is dropping too low and the LED lights are switching off, the batteries are still 20-30% full maybe. You can still put it on here, and here we have 7.5 volts. Okay, it's still quite 7.5. I don't know if you can see it, 7.58 volts. So it's quite full still, but with this solution you can also empty your batteries to the max, and so you can also use the maximum of the capacity of your batteries. Besides, for example, I have here a second connection to and I'm mounting this here. I have here a flash adapter, which I also secure with this screw here. By the way, the mounting option is the original ATOMOS one. But let's move this to the other side. You can see it here. This is an R300 from FNV with milk filter attached. Okay, one too much. Attached. But the important point is I have here a second connection with the direct battery connection. So this is not coming from the step-up converter, this is coming directly from the battery. I'm using, for example, Wago connectors with cable end caps, aka cable ferrules, or how they're called. So nothing is breaking. And so I get here the 6 to 8.4 volts from the NPF. And here I get the power from beneath here, from the SmallRIG step-up converter with the 12 volts to the recorder. And so that way I can use one battery for both, and I also can empty this battery to the max, at least until this LED is switching off, because yeah, it also has a switch a voltage limitation. But as I normally don't use this light at full power anyways, because it's too bright otherwise, it's working like a charm, I have to say. By the way, very important, and you can see here we are now at 757, 758 volts. And important point, there is also another solution. You don't need to fiddle around all those cables. I mean, one of the cable secure thingies, the Velcro straps got loose. You don't need to fiddle around with those cable mess. You can also go with an easier solution, especially if you don't need the power for an additional LED light. Go for this solution here. This is the standard plate, and I will show it to you with the GH2 so you can see it a little bit better. So, okay. Okay. This is the standard plate, and this is the 12 volt plate. The strap is also included here, and you also get, for example, with both types, you get such a clip-on, yeah, connector you can mount somewhere. Although it's quite wobbly, as you can see. Normally I had some sticky tape, thicker textile sticky tape in between, and it worked better. But I'm normally using, for example, this 15mm rod connector, and I normally clamp it on 15mm rods, as you can see here now. But the point is that, and this is really important to know, this is the 12 volt step-up version, and this is the standard version. The standard version is able to supply up to 30 watts, and this one is able to supply up to, yeah, safely up to 20 watts. With my solution it worked, because here I normally don't use the light to the max, because the light has about 28 to 30 watts max, and this has a max of about 7 to 8 watts, but also only with hard drives. With SSDs you're somewhere around 5 to 6 watts, which is really, really low for an external recorder, with all the assist features like vector scope, RGB parade, peaking, false color. Everything is also coming, by the way, now with S-Log, C-Log, J-Log, V-Log support with a new HDR feature. So highly recommended again. But to get back to the power, as I don't use both at the same time at full power, especially the LED light, it's working here with the 30 watt version of the standard plate without the step up. This one, by the way, and I will show it to you. This one is called DV battery plate adapter. 1020801 is the serial number. Just put it into or write it into the search field of AliExpress, or you can also search for, and this is, for example, the box of it. It's called, and I'm refocusing a little bit here. Okay, it's BMPCC. It's normally for the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. Just search for Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera NPF adapter, or BMPCC NPF adapter, or BMCC or BMPC, which are the short names for the Blackmagic Cinema camera and the Blackmagic Production camera. And here you also get, for example, a DC cable for connecting the pocket to this adapter plate, which is now not here. But if you want or plan to search for it, and I also will try to put a link in the description, then just search for those names, and I'm readjusting again. Okay, and the huge pro of this is that you don't need any of the cable mass here. You just need a connection from the plate to the DK415 adapter, and I'm using now the second one without the red dot, because this is the normal connection for the R300 LED light. And if you, for example, interconnect this cable here from the DK415 to one of those adapters, for example, and this is a standard 2.5 inner diameter, 5.5 outer diameter adapter, used to cable end caps, aka ferrules, or how they're called, and then connect it to this plate, and you're ready to shoot, because you're getting constant 12 volts out of this plate. Overall, I really like the solution. By the way, there's also a short hint according the voltage indicator. Badly, those adapters are only coming with the red light, so you know that there is power on the adapter. But there is also, for example, the solution here with the standard adapter, which is getting green as soon as it's over 8 volts, and which is going red. And I can show you this. I think this is half empty. Okay, it's also full. This one. Oh, okay, this one, which is going red under 8 volts. And as you can see here, under 8 volts, red, over 8 volts, green. Badly, this is not working with the 12 volt adapter, because the 12 volt adapter only shows red all the time. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a downside, but if you're using the standard adapter, you know at least that it's over, and this is the standard one, that it's over 8 volts. And so you can also very fast check if your batteries are charged or not. By the way, I have one of those, which is quite rocked off in my bag, or at home most of the time, to be honest, because I can check with this also, is my battery full? Yes, it's full. Or is my battery half empty? Or should I recharge it a little bit at least? Yes, I need to recharge it. And sure, some chargers also offer this feature, but you don't need a charger to check it. Also in field, for example, if you're sorting your batteries, full or not full, or half full only, yeah, it's also a very nice solution. Just as a side note. Okay, I will now remount the DK415 again. And yeah, a few general hints which I wanted to talk about. I really like the Ninja Blade, as you maybe recognized, especially since the last update, which also supports now all the lock profiles, with only exception of Fuji, which came out later than this update. Maybe there's a new one, but I don't think so, that there's coming anything else anymore for the Ninja Blade at least. But if you're searching for an external recorder, the Ninja Blade is really great. A few limitations are, or the only limitation is, was the pixel-to-pixel feature, which is not working, and yes, the SATA adapter, which is originally included, was really a mess. Otherwise, I really like the Ninja Blade. An important hint, according powering the bigger models. The bigger models are also sucking way more power, so you can also run way longer with the Ninja Blade, with 8 watts max, around 6 watts, 7 watts with SSD, compared to up to 20 watts with the older 4K models from ATOMOS, up to 24 with the Flame high brightness models, and 33 watts up to 33 watts with the Inferno models. So if you want a recorder which is delivering a perfect 1080p and which is also running the whole day with 1/4 of batteries compared to the others or so, especially compared to the Inferno series with over 30 watts, then I highly recommend the Ninja Blade. Keep also in mind, if you plan to power the 4K models with external plates, that they also suck more power. Again, standard plate up to 30 watts, which I know because there is a fuse in there with 5 amps, which multiplied with the lowest voltage of around 6 volts, which is the cutoff, gives you around 30 watts. And this has a 3.5 amp fuse, and I can show it to you with the GH2. Here there is a small fuse in there, and which you can get out with such a thin screwdriver. Just pop it open, and then you get to the fuse, and this is a 3.5 in the 12 volt and a 5.5, for example, here it is in the standard plate. And the point is, again, 20 watts with a step-up version, 30 watts with a standard version. So this one you can still use with the original Shogun and Assassin, and the standard plate you can use with the Flame and the Inferno. If you don't dial up the Flame series to the max brightness, you can also use this maybe. So you can also suck the batteries to they're completely empty state with this battery, with the Flame. But for the Flame, I highly recommend to go with the bigger step up, because here it's quite on the limit. And if you burn out the fuse, also recommendation, and to be honest, I also need to do this. I also plan to keep a second fuse in my bag, so if there is one breaking or one is burning out, that I can replace them. By the way, use only T models fuses, which are the slow burning out fuses, not M, F or double F, because those are the faster ones. Only T 3.5 125 or T 3.5 to 50 volts in the step up, and T5 to 50 volts or T5A 125 in the standard one. Just a side note. In general, I have to say that I really like external recorders, but also keep in mind, if you plan to buy one, it's more work. You need the Magic Arm solution, you need the batteries, you need the caddies, you need the external readers for them. But if you want to get the best quality out of them, especially with a very great camera like the GH4 or the A7S or whatever camera makes sense, then I highly recommend to go for a Ninja Blade. Just keep in mind, more work, more to carry, more time to prepare. Also, don't oversee this. So this was my recommendation video according accessories. By the way, another side note, if you go for ATOMOS recorders, always go for the deluxe models, or the pro models, kits, or how they're called, because there you also get a hard case with all the compartments for the caddies, for the readers, for the SE adapters, and so on and so on. Don't go for the light versions, or how they call them. And yeah, if you really plan to go for a 5-inch recorder, or if you want something in between, check out the Ninja Blade. Okay, that's it more or less. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I hope no one is sleeping already. That's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.